Hey there, thank you so much for being here. I'm Felicia Lowe from Sweet Georgia, and today we are doing a little experiment. You might know that we used to publish an audio-only podcast called The Sweet Georgia Show, and I recorded about 100 episodes that you can find right now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And they are all interviews and conversations with makers in our community. So today I'm really excited to start having new conversations with people in our community, including our Sweet Georgia brand ambassadors. We've been teaming up with ambassadors from Germany to Singapore to North America to help spread the word about the benefits of working with color and craft. And many of these makers are multicraftual makers in that they might knit or crochet, spin, weave, dye yarn, or any of the combination of the above. So today I want to welcome and introduce our newest brand ambassador, Stephanie Klauck of The Creative Knitter. She has been a long-time member of our School of Sweet Georgia, and you might recognize many of her rainbow-colored projects on Instagram. As a knitter and a crocheter, dyer, and paper crafter, among many other things, I believe it's possible that Stephanie has cracked the code on how to make time to make things. And so I'm really eager to learn how she does it all. Hey, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay! So I'm really excited to introduce you to our community here, but I think that many people in our crafty world already know you and know your love of rainbow colored crafts. You can find Stephanie, we're going to post links to all these things, but you can find Stephanie posting really beautiful, colorful yarns and her projects at The Creative Knitter on Instagram and also on YouTube. And she also has an Etsy shop for The Creative Knitter as well. And we're going to share the links to all of those. But today I wanted to chat with Stephanie because I think that she must have some tips and tricks on how to manage a lot of making. So first off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're calling from, where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I'm in Canada. I'm in Ontario, which is completely on the other side of Canada from where you are. I'm about 20 minutes from Niagara Falls. So that's kind of the area that I kind of say because people don't know my little town of Crystal Beach very often. And I've lived here my whole life. I have a husband and 2 kids. My son is almost 17. And my daughter is actually 22 and married and lives in Asia. So a lot of people do know that. I usually share that. And they are expecting their first child, which is super exciting. So we're about 5 weeks away, I think, from the baby coming. So with all of the things happening, it's a little bittersweet because I won't be able to. The plan was for me to go to Asia for the birth, but obviously that's not going to happen right now. So we have really perfected our FaceTime and all of that stuff. So I will be there as best as I can be in the predicament that we're in. So we're excited. And I work full time from home and have for quite a few years now. And yeah, I'm kind of a homebody. So I love to be home. So it works well for me.
Well, that's amazing news. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's so exciting. I mean, are you doing a lot of making for the baby right now?
Yeah, we actually just shipped off a bunch of boxes. I did the Sweet Georgia Advent make-along and I made the blanket for the baby and it's on its way to Asia right now. We're going to have a virtual baby shower soon.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. That's so exciting.
Yeah, we can't wait.
5 weeks. Okay. So I really, really want to get into hearing more and more about like all the crafts that you're in and sort of how you got started. Because I know that from our past conversations, I know we were meeting on some of the Crafternoon, the Zoom calls earlier last year during the pandemic, and I got a chance to see your beautiful craft room and everything. And I remember you saying that you mostly crochet, but that you also knit, but that you also did some paper crafting, but you did like a lot of other things. And so I wanted to hear about sort of all the things that you have your hands in right now.
Yeah. So I've always been crafty my whole life. I've always made stuff and, made handmade gifts from whatever I kind of had on hand. But I really got into like crafty stuff in 2003 when I got married. My mom made my husband and I scrapbooks for our wedding gift. And I immediately got the bug and wanted to become a scrapbooker. So I did that for quite a few years. I've been in the paper crafting industry for quite a long time since then. So, and then over time, my scrapbooking shifted into card making. That's actually what I do full time. I work for a stamp and die cutting company. And I do that full time. So I have a full-time job in that industry. But I found over time that the hobby of paper crafting, because it was my job, it wasn't as much of a hobby anymore. It was because I did it, full time for work. So I found that when I finished work at the end of the day, I didn't always have that desire to want to sit down and make cards. So I branched out into other things. And I've only actually been knitting since the end of 2018, I think. I had no idea how to knit. So I started with knitting. I found that much easier than crochet. And I knit for about a year, about 6 to 8 months, and then decided, oh my gosh, I want to dye yarn. So I went from that into the yarn dyeing. So I do that. I learned to crochet. So I'll do that as well. And aside from that, I have tried everything. Like I do macrame, I make felt flowers. Like there's pretty much not anything that I won't try at least once. And either I love it or I just kind of move on to the next thing. And the newest thing is sewing. So I just got a new sewing machine and I've started to play around with that as well. So I kind of it's my passion. I love it. I love to create. I don't think I go a day without creating something or doing something creative. It's just, thus my name, the creative knitter. It might sound cheesy, but it makes my heart happy to do something creative every single day.
This is so fantastic. So I have so many questions for you because I want to ask you about your room. I want to ask you about organization. I want to ask you about your colors, but I also want to ask you about because you do so many different crafts and it seems like you kind of evolve from one to the next. And do you ever feel any sort of guilt about how much time you spend on different things? Or, do you wish that you had more time to do certain things and not other things? Or when you move on from one craft to the next, do you ever feel guilty about having moved on?
I used to, but I don't anymore. Mainly because I like to try a lot of things, and I'm like that person who's an optimist, a dreamer. If I get an idea, I grab onto it and I'm like, oh, this is I'm going to be this amazing yarn dyer, for example, and I'm going to open my shop. And there's been times when I've tried things and I don't do it for really the purpose of a job because I have a job. I do it because I want to share my creative side with people. So that's kind of why I have my Etsy shop. It's not like a full-time business by any means. I dye when I have the time and when I am in the mood to do it. And I just like to share what I create in that creative process. So no, I don't feel guilty at all. It's very important to take time for yourself to do things that are creative or that feed your soul, whether that be reading a book, riding a bike, dyeing yarn, knitting a scarf, whatever that might be. I think that a lot of times we do feel guilty because life can just be so busy. But I am a firm believer that is just as important as breathing in life.
It's really interesting because you said your day job, you work for a company that is in paper crafting and you have creative work already to begin with. So you still have a creative outlet outside of your creative work.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for real. Yeah. Like I said earlier, I was just a full-time paper crafter and that was also my full-time hobby. And I still love to do it, but I don't love to do it as much as I used to, just because now that's also part of my daytime job. So when I put down the paper, I do other tasks. I'm on the computer all day. I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff now as well. I've evolved in my position, but I definitely find that the fiber arts gave me a chance to really find a passion again for something. And it's definitely my passion now.
Fantastic. Okay, so I want to ask you about your room because this is one of the things that was just so cool to see when we first started doing those craft afternoons and we all got together on Zoom during the start of the pandemic, I think it was, and just starting to do online knitting meetups, right? And I think you had just finished your craft room at the time, but it's beautiful and it's painted a beautiful color and it's all organized. I imagine coming from paper crafting, everything I've seen about paper crafting has been really organized. Like all the paper has to be in the right place at the right time so that you can find everything that you need. How do you have your space organized now?
With this room I've had for a couple of years now, but when I started knitting and that became such a big thing for me, I created the area that I'm in now. So this is like one corner of my space. And this is what I call my knitting nook. So this is actually like I have a carpet here, and I believe I've posted some photos on Instagram of my space. So you can definitely check that out on there if anyone's kind of curious to see. But this area is literally just for me to create in. I have a comfy chair that I'm sitting in. I have an overhead lamp. I have all my yarn behind me and my projects, and I can just sit in this space and just kind of knit or crochet or just pet the yarn, whatever I feel like doing. But then I also have sections in other areas of the room. You can't see it on here, but I have my desk area on the far wall, and that's kind of my work area where I do all my work during the day. And then I have another area to the left of me, which has an island and is where I do all my sewing and paper crafting. I tend to stand when I craft. I'm definitely a stander when I do stuff. So I kind of have it organized in the different crafts, and everything that kind of goes with that craft is in that area. So that way I have everything nice and organized, which is another favorite hobby of mine, organizing all the things. And it's pretty much an IKEA showroom in here. Everything is from IKEA almost. So everything matches and goes together really well.
Do you follow the home edit at all?
Oh, absolutely. I have both books. Yes, love them.
Because I got the sense, because with everything organized in rainbow color order and everything, they really, really like that. Yep. And then I see like so much of your work revolves around rainbows, so much so that your logo involves rainbows as well. Yep. Your projects involve rainbows. I know that you were saying that you had just started knitting in 2018, but then very shortly after, it seemed like you started publishing knitting patterns. And
yeah, I published one so far. So, and I'm working on my second right now, actually with SweetGeorgia Yarn. It's about halfway done. I'm in the home stretch, so I'm super excited.
Yeah. So tell me about your color sense, because I think that rainbows, obviously, they mean a lot to you. And I'm just wondering, what is it about rainbows that you love so much and about like rainbow color order and all these kinds of things?
Mainly, I think rainbow colors to me just make sense. They're they are consistent, and they tell a great colorful story. I love how the colors interact together. And one of the things I love most about rainbows is that they don't have to be a traditional rainbow. I have actually dyed a few different rainbow sets, and I changed the name. It still usually features rainbow somewhere in it, but they kind of I changed the feel of the colors. So I have one that's super bright. I have one that's kind of more moody and rustic. So I love that you can play with the color, and they just make me happy. They're a sign of hope. And I just love the bright colors. And I just think that they bring happiness when you look at all those colors together.
I totally agree. And I love this idea that, yeah, like rainbow colors don't all have to be that primary, Crayola set sort of color rainbow that you think about, like yeah, that come out of the box. But they could be these nuanced different versions, these different variations of rainbow colors, right?
Yep, I agree.
Radiant in a different way.
Exactly. And it's just so fun to kind of come up with a new way to make a rainbow look like a rainbow, but still look a little bit different from the one you did before.
Yeah. So you're dyeing now in your spare time, in your extra time, after all of the other crafts that you're doing. But you're not dyeing in this space, right? Can you talk about
yes, I do. I live in a very small cottage style home, so I don't have a basement. I don't have a garage. I don't have like anywhere really that I can have a different space for dyeing. So I actually just have induction cooktops. And I have a stack of pots that sit behind my door, and I just use my island and set up all the cooktops when I want to dye and do it all right in this room. And I just carry big pots of water from the bathroom where I fill them in the tub. So it's a lot of lifting, but it's worth it to me because I love to do it. So I just use the space.
I think it's really encouraging for people to hear that like you can set up a dye space like in a very, very small amount of space. You don't have to have a big studio in order to do this kind of work. You don't have a big separate garage or anything. Like you can do it just with one cooktop and a pot of water, really, right?
Yeah, exactly. You just need, if where there's a will, there's a way. You'll always find a way to make it work, I feel, if you really want to do something.
So now tell me a little bit about your Etsy shop that you also started. How was sort of the planning around starting that? I know that there's a lot of people that we've talked to in the school before who are really kind of curious about starting to dye yarn for as a business, to become an indie dyer. And you did make that step, and not even as your work or your full-time job, but as just something like on the side for fun. Sort of what kind of considerations did you make as you sort of moved down that path? And did you find any big challenges or any big struggles along the way, or what was easier than you imagined?
Setting up a shop was actually very easy. I thought it was going to be kind of scary, but it really wasn't. I feel like with Etsy, you kind of have a safety barrier because, I mean, you're paying, like, I'm not sure what people know about Etsy, but you pretty much just pay certain small fees to be able to list your product. So you're not really putting out a lot of money to open up an Etsy shop. And you always have the option down the road, if you get bigger and, have a large business, that you can move it from Etsy. But I think it's a great starting point, or it's a great place to do what I want to do, which is just have something small. I don't want it to be my full-time business. I just want to have it, an avenue to be able to sell my yarn. So setting it up was actually not that difficult. I think the hardest thing for me was figuring out the logistics of like shipping and stuff like that. That's what kind of overwhelmed me. And I had a lot of questions, and I just reached out to other dyer friends who have shops, and you would be amazed at how helpful and kind other dyers are. They're willing to share information. And, I got a lot of help in that department from other dyers so my best advice is to reach out. Don't be shy, just kind of reach out, introduce yourself, and you'd be amazed at how many people will help.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I think that there's a lot of people who are very generous with their knowledge and just really want to help support other people who are going through the difficulties of starting a business on your own, and just to hear from other people who are doing the same thing, it can be really, really helpful. I think everybody struggles with, shipping and Canada Post.
Yeah. That's the scariest part, I think, of all of it, is not even making the product or putting your heart out there for the world to see. It's making sure that you're, charging enough, or not charging not too much, and that the package is actually going to get where it's going. So just little stuff like that is what I found was the hardest part of the process.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so now, like on a daily basis, what's kind of a day in the life like for you, in terms of how you manage when you do your knitting and when you do your crochet and when you do your paper crafting and when you do the business start? Do you kind of carve it up between personal time and business time and work time now?
I don't really have a schedule. It's kind of depends on what's happening, where if I know that I have some dyeing coming up that I want to do, or like right now I'm working on a knitting design. So that's kind of my priority when I'm not working. I get up very early. I start my day very early. So I'm usually up and around between 5 and 6. And I usually start working at that time. And then I work my, full work day. And then because I start work so early, I can usually end the day. I usually don't, but I try to end, like around dinner time. And then in the evenings, I just kind of pick whatever task needs to be done and kind of work on that. I try to keep evenings during the week for my creative time, not so much work time, but I do work weekends on my own stuff. So I dye yarn on the weekends. I do computer work and all that kind of stuff on the weekends. If I have to, I do it on the weeknights as well. But I have started to kind of take Sunday off from any kind of work stuff. I'm trying to keep Sunday where I can just kind of, do stuff with my husband or my son when he wants to. He's almost 17, so he doesn't really have any interest in hanging out with mom. And I just kind of pick different projects and try and have quiet time on Sunday where I can work on stuff that's just mine, so I don't get burnout just doing work stuff all the time.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice, actually. The two things. One is waking up early in the morning, I think is huge. I've heard that from a bunch of different makers who, when they wake up really early in the morning, an extra hour or two, that they get just so much more done. I know for myself this morning, I just woke up 15 minutes earlier, and it made my mornings a lot easier.
Oh yeah. It's
15 minutes.
yeah, that extra time in the morning. And sometimes I'll get up with the intent that I'll do like 30 minutes of knitting with my coffee before I even start my day. And those are some of my best days when I start off doing something creative. It just sets your mood for the whole day. And I think it's a great idea if you're able to, add an extra half an hour of wake time. You can definitely get some stuff done for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then the other idea being that like you take some time off on Sunday or whichever day to basically recover and have that time as rest so that you don't burn out, right? It has to be an ongoing practice to prevent burnout. And I feel like you can't, you don't know that you're headed for burnout until you're there, and then it's too late. So it's like you have to do this proactive, preventative work.
Yeah, exactly. And with me, one of the big things for me is I have to still love doing it. So if, I get to a point, and that's happened, like, especially because I try so many things, if I get to a point where something isn't bringing me joy anymore, and it feels more like work than like fun, then it's time to take that kind of out of the equation and focus on something else or try something new.
Yeah, I think that that's really good. I mean, just to be able to listen to yourself and what you're feeling, what you're going through, I think is really important, as opposed to feeling any external pressure about, oh, I have to finish this, or I have to show this, or I have to do whatever. Like, you don't have to do anything. This is your making. Just
exactly
do what you like.
Yeah. Do what's making you happy. Yeah,
exactly.
I agree.
So I noticed that you started a YouTube channel not too long ago. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you're doing on the YouTube channel?
So yeah, I haven't done a video in a while. That has definitely been one of the things that kind of fell to the wayside, but I did start it at, podcast style. I still do think that it's a great way to kind of put yourself out there and share, with other makers. I love to watch podcasts, especially like knitting and sewing and any type of podcast like that. Obviously, if you like to watch what interests you. And I just think it's a great way to connect with other people. Like the people I watch, I feel like we're like the best of friends, even though they have no idea who I even am. So that was kind of the idea behind doing it. And I definitely want to get back to it. It's just one of the things that kind of took a little bit of a break, but I will be getting back to it. So I have a few episodes, but nothing too earth-shattering yet, but I will be recording soon, I hope.
Fantastic. So last question is basically, what are you most excited about learning this year? What's sort of your plan for 2021 and what you want to learn this year?
Definitely design. I love the creative outlet of being able to design something that, has my ideas. So I definitely want to get farther into it. I've designed one cowl. I'm working on a second cowl right now. And I'm also all about designing things that I love to knit. So cowls and shawls are definitely my number one. They're my favorite. Shawls are by far my favorite. So I would love to really get into shawl design this year. I think that there's a lot of room to play with patterns and, learn new things. I'm doing mosaic in the cowl pattern I'm doing right now, and I absolutely love it. It's the first time I've done it, and I jumped right in and decided, okay, I'm going to do a design with it. But it is such a fun knitting technique. I love it. So I definitely think this is the year where I really want to focus on design and, get some patterns created and out there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I'm really happy that we finally got to do this. And I think that the most impressive thing is that you have such confidence going through every step of every part of your crafting. Like if you want to learn design, you're like, I'm gonna design stuff. I'm gonna dye stuff. And I think that that's really infectious. I think it's really encouraging to a lot of people that like just do the things that make you happy, do the things that you love, and just go for it. You don't have to be nervous or scared about anything. And I think that confidence really comes through. So I really appreciate you, working with our yarns, being a part of the school, doing all the things that you do, attending the meetups that we have, and just being in the community to really share a lot of this positive energy. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I love being a part of the whole fiber community, but especially SweetGeorgia. It's just been such a great resource. I've learned so much at the school, and everyone is just so nice in the forum. So it's definitely, a favorite place to hang out for sure.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much to Stephanie for joining me for this first chat. I personally find her enthusiasm for color and craft really infectious, and it's always been really encouraging to see all the different ways that she's been able to juggle her passions and still maintain and preserve the fun and enjoyment of what she's making. So again, if you'd like to find her, you can look her up on Instagram at The Creative Knitter, and she's also on YouTube. And then we'll post links to her Etsy shop in the show notes as well, which you'll find below. So let me know what you learned today, if it was about waking up early to get more crafting in, or about intentionally resting to prevent burnout, or even Stephanie's tip about how she sets up her dye space in a small space. If you like this episode, please hit the like button, and if you would like to see more of our videos every week, you can hit subscribe and ring the bell, and you'll get notified every time we release a new video, which is usually every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Okay, so that is it for today. Next week, we are going to be talking about the new spring and summer stuff at SweetGeorgia, and I'll have lots of yarn and colors to show you. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one. All right, bye for now.